you know, how extreme do we really want to go? How extreme do you want me to go? I tell you, sitting down is an extreme sport because I believe this is what happens in Japanese. Maybe I'll say that. How extreme do you want me to go? Yeah, we'll talk about it another time. For those who are coming from YouTube, this is like going to be video like, I don't know, 9 or 10 in the series, so you probably should just watch it from the start, or else things will be kind of confusing. Now, if you've been keeping up with this Conlang with Me series, you may have noticed that there's this strange alternation we see in certain morphemes between schwa and a. And I've been wanting to make these two this alternation come from somewhere, and I think I've got a good idea as to how to do it. Okay, yeah, but we're going to go in. So what we've just done is sort of reorganize the verb system of the proto-language according to this system where we have different verb stems. We have 6 different verb stems in the proto-language, which are each characterized by a different stress pattern for some verbs. And this explains why we have the alternations that we have. So given that we've done all of this work and we have at least some of these charts filled out, we can go back to our text and sort of revamp it. So I think that's probably what we should do next. I was going to do some case today, but I don't know if I'll have time. Okay, well, let's just see. And where is our text? Can we see all of this adequately? Okay, well, maybe I will just insert some rows above here. This is called technological excellence. There we go. Okay. So let's go to work. So on the first, oh no, this isn't our proto-text. This is our proto-text. I have to do that again. There we go. All right, put in some little notes to self here. One, I've been wanting to get rid of this reduplicative plural in the proto-language for a while. I don't know why, but I just do. It just doesn't feel in keeping with the vibe of the proto-language. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to change quo to quota. Okay, so that's good. The black-like coal raven gave an eye of ill intent to the swan because her feathers were as white as the sun. To be properly SOV, this clause should be earlier in the sentence. So you can see the whole note, but that's what it says. So let's take sequopataufo, the black-like coal, sequopataufo fasanasu huasaqua, excuse me. Okay, so that's the subject. And then we need something like, I'm going to just split this into more rows. Swan give. Yeah. So this is meant to be a kind of a dative. I'd rather have a proper dative case. So maybe we are going to be able to do some case in this video. I had an idea to take the so I'm going to go over here. Boop boop boop. Here's our case system so far. I've divided it into 2 types of case: primary cases, which are in complementary distribution with each other. So which are in contrastive distribution with each other. So you either have genitive or vocative in the same slot, and then there are these postpositional case forms, which I'm taking as being less tightly related to the noun, and in fact you can stack these case forms on top of the primary case forms. So you can say something like, so we have this. We could say nafia. Nafia is the word for feather. If you want to say like of the feather, you could say something like nafia UFO. So you can stack these things. But you can only stack postpositional cases on top of primary cases. And it's interesting, and this is another thing that I have mercilessly pilfered from classical Japanese, that the three primary cases, they have the topic marker as another one of them, but I'm not going to go there for this. Nominative, genitive, and vocative. And then our other cases are going to originate from more kind of locative style cases. So the accusative is going to derive from a form which means to go through, and the dative is going to derive from a form which means to go to, which we don't have these forms yet. We should probably make them. And I guess that's our task right now. So let's make them. So I don't think we have either of these verbs. So those of you in the chat, now is your time. Now is your chance to get your word in and help me out with some forms. So I'm going to, well, you can get a sense of the phonology of the language from some of these words that we've been using. I'm taking suggestions. We need a verb form to go to and a verb form to go through. And if you want something, we can adapt it to the phonology. So don't let the existing phonology constrain you. If you have something that you'd like to say, we can make it fit. Kind of like a loan word. Yeah, we're having a lot of morphology. This is I think, yeah. Did I title the stream Morphology Speed Run? We're speeding through it. We're getting stuff done. This is very, very near and dear to my heart. My own training is as a morphologist, awkwardly perched between syntax and phonology, just kind of trying to make sure I don't lean too far in either direction. This is my favorite stuff. I love coming up with systems that were regular at one point and then sound change has turned into the kinds of things that language learners have nightmares about. Thank you, ukwe, to go through. So, I'm just going to go ahead and put it in. Give us our nice little go through. And that's actually probably a good size for an accusative case. And I really like that. That just feels accusative to me. I don't know. All right, while you're thinking, and I know there is a delay in the chat, so while that's underway, I'm going to go through and I'm going to go back to our text and I'm going to start making a few changes. And again, that's not the correct text. Okay. So the black light coal raven, that's all that this says right now, gave an eye of ill intent to the swan because her feathers were as white as the sun. Okay, so I think this has to be we have to have Payawi here. Okay, speakers of SOV languages, how would you express this? Where would you put this clause, because her feathers were as white as the sun? Would you do something like the raven, black like coal, gave the evil eye to the swan, and this was done, or it was because her feathers were white that this was done? Something like that. Something like, because her feathers were as white as the sun, he did this. Or it did this, I guess in this case. Something like that. Or would you try and put it somewhere inside this first sentence? Like the black like coal raven to the swan because it was blah 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 gave the evil eye. Is that more what you would do? Let's try that. So we still need a dative. We need a dative case. Let's get some more space and let's take our verb phrase and put it right down here at the end. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, so it looks like Hindi allows these dependent clauses to come after, whereas Japanese will not. So how do we, I guess, who do we want to, which side do we want to do? I think because we've been so inspired by classical Japanese, let's go down that route. But I think in Eustamia, let's use the Hindi style setup. So we have this meaning ill intent I gave. In fact, this is passed as a suffix. Gave the evil eye. Yeah, Violet, in Eustamia, we are using quo as a or ku, I guess it is, as a dative marker. So it comes from this verb to give. But I'd like the case marker in the proto language to be something different. And then we have this cool effect where, you know, the proto language has a completely different sort of case system than the descendant language, and then we can have some cool cases where there are fossilized forms that work in the proto language and blah blah blah, this kind of thing. Okay, yes, I'm going to attempt it then. I'm going to attempt doing it the Japanese style. So the black light coal raven to the swan. So we need this dative marker. We don't know what it's going to be yet. Or maybe we just put this at the very start. That's what we should do. So start out with the swan. Start out with the swan. Because the swan swan's feathers whereas, so swan genitive payawi kh nafia masafaufo sun-like white do because. Okay, this works. And then we don't need this anymore. So payawicha nafia masafa ufo masala yatohwa sakwopeta ufo fasa nasu huasakwa sasukasu wana quota, more or less. But we don't now have a representation of the swan in the main clause. So we can say something like, just use a pronoun. which our pronoun is so, and then we need the dative marker on that. Verb like raven, third dative. Okay, that's more or less, I think, what we want. Now we have to apply our new verbal system to this. So I'm going to go over here and look up what we have here. Oh, it's so little real estate. Okay. And this is even a pretty big screen too. I mean, it's not that big, but it's big enough, right? Okay, so it's going to be, what is this? This is because. So because is going to be this tohua, which we are calling conditional one. So this is a conditional one form. Conditional one takes the E stem. The E stem has penultimate stress. So then we have ya tohua. Great. Doesn't need any changing. Okay. And then let's look at this one, quota. Well, because this is just a monosyllable with an O vowel, we don't need to worry about anything but the fact that it's final stress, so quota. So the whole sentence, and I'm just going to make something up for this indirect object because I need it. So this is 2, 4, the dative marker. We can say it's going to be something like, let's take a look at the lexicon. Maybe something like maybe nam, so that we have a bit of different consonants showing up in these endings. Nama. So then, going back to the text, we can say so nama. And then we have the full first sentence. Payawicha nafia masafaufo masala yatohua sakwapetaufo fasanasu huasakwa sonama sasukasu wanakwota. Cool. Cool. Okay. What is next? Oh, I guess the one thing, we don't know if it's going to be quota or quota because we don't know if it's a strong or a weak verb. So I've just made it into a weak verb here. So I guess you're a weak verb now. Enjoy it. We know ya is a weak verb as well. All right, let's move on a little bit. Osasakwa. And this is, actually should be osasakwa, because this is our, where is it? Substantive form, stem D, final stress, unless it's a strong verb. Is it a strong verb? No. So osasakwa, idea, or a seeing, literally. Osasakwa sunakwotasu. And here we have another verby form, sunakwota. This is the attributive form. Takes the D stem, which has final stress. So whether this is strong or weak, it'll still be the same. Sunakwotasu. Sunakwotasu in the pre-protocol. In protocol, sunakwotasu. Great. Okay. And now we need to use our new dative, kolinama. Osasakwa sunakwotasu kolinama memanata. So we're assuming that this is going to be a strong verb that in pre-protocol had its stress fixed on one of these root syllables, just to mix it up. So an idea came to the foolish bird. Oh dear, this This is a long sentence. So kona fetu alupa. I want to deal with this and issue because I hate the way that we're doing and right now. I would rather have a verb form. So I'd rather have a case marker to express nominal and, so, ham and cheese. So that would be a kind of a comminative form, meaning with. And then I would also like to have a verbal form, which we can call continuative, which again I've mercilessly and shamelessly stolen to give us the and that joins verb phrases together. And so we need an ending for that. So that's going to be something. Or maybe we don't need an ending. Maybe it can have no ending. It does have some distinct morphology, which is final stress. But it would be, I think we should have an ending. Let's have an ending. So I'm going to leave that in for the chat to pick up and give suggestions for if the feeling strikes you. Swim and descend and in the water growing plants eat. Chupa. Love it. Alupa chupa. Nakula chupa. I'm doing the stress pattern of the pre-proto language because we know it's going to have final stress. And so by not changing alupa, we're saying that there is probably no stress shift. This is a strong verb. If we wanted a stress shift, what would we do? We'd find one of these. We could potentially find one of these as, and we'd have justification for turning it into a schwa, if indeed the representation of alupa was this underspecified vowel. When it loses stress, actually it couldn't be that. It would have to be just like this. When it loses stress, it would go to alupa, chupa. But never mind. Let's not complicate our lives unnecessarily. Maybe only a very limited selection of verbs are going to have this pattern. That stands to reason. Okay, so then palawe. So kwana fetu alupa chupa nakwala chupa palawama sunafiesu sahwana fahwesu payawi ufo somane wenato okwa. So originally, in Eustamia we have this this kind of like modal verb, which comes from the word meaning to want, wenato in proto-language. Wenato gives us this kind of like would, this irialis marker in Eustamia, but we don't need it in the proto-language because we already have an irialis conditional, which is the counterfactional conditional to okwa. So we can just put in somane okwa. And it's a C, penultimate stress, no change. Great. Ahwa. Oh, okay. Yeah. Next thing we need to add is going to be ahwa. Maybe. So let's put that in. Maybe negative? I don't know. Okay, so let's take stock. So kwana fetu alupa chupa, nechwala chupa, palawama, palawema, sonafiesu, sahwena, fahwesu, payawi ufo, somaneokwa. Good. That's the conditional. Now we have the result. Tenafia. Okay, so we don't have ta anymore. We have socha. That's an old form that we did away with. So this is now third person genitive. Socha nafia payawi ufo. Masala lafu wenato. Okay. So we, I think, do not need this wenato here. We can just use our terminal predicative form. Lafu, done. And we also, I think, need masala to be some sort of, we need a continuative form here, I think. Maybe we don't. I don't know. I'll leave that for now. Let's just leave it as a bare form at the moment. Masala lafu and socha nafia payawi ufo. Interestingly, so I've made a little note about this, which you can't totally see because, in fact, you can't see it at all because it's totally off the screen. But here's what the note says. This is a good opportunity for us to practice case stacking because we have his feathers would turn white like the swan's feathers, really. We've elided this word feathers, but we're not saying the feathers would turn white like the swan. We could, but we're not. What we're saying is the feathers would turn white like those feathers of the swan. So we can do swan genitive like. So instead of payawi ufo, we have payawi cha ufo. And now we're going to have to deal with these vowels in hiatus at some point. That maybe we'll do that next time. But we got to return to the actual descendant language. I don't know. We'll see. So socha nafia payawi cha ufo masala lafu. Good. Done. And then okapina so kelaya pa satanesima homasu socha anatochakwa umasata. So we need to make sure all of these things are obeying our rules. I think we don't have to do any changes here because homasu to be or which is. So he left his home in the woods and fields. Literally, because of this, it woods and fields in, which were, so his home, which was in the woods and fields, left. Oh, it is hard to translate word for word SOV into SVO word order. So he left his home, which was in the woods and fields. Let's take this and deal with our pa issue first. So now pa is a case marker on the noun. We can call it the comitative case, the with case. Okapina so kelayapa setanasima homasu. Homasu, attributive, takes the D stem, final stress, no worries. Homasu, socha anatochakwa. Chakwa, substantive, takes the D stem, final stress, but is this a weak or a strong verb? It is, I guess, a strong verb, so we leave it, anatochakwa. This is getting complicated. I think people are going to need to study this for years if they want to learn it. Good. Excellent. The more complicated, the better to a certain... There is a point of diminishing returns, of course. All right. So then what else do we have to do? I realize we're a bit over. We're a bit over our time. I'm not super pressed for time today, but I'll wrap things up. And we have another form here. Oh, apologies because you couldn't see that little... There we go. Everything's good. Okay, so then we have this... So he left his home in the woods and fields and flew down to live on the lakes and in the marshes. So this is not the end of a sentence. So we need a continuative form. So instead of umasata, we have umasahupa. We can just say and then we get rid of this pa. And now we have this interesting thing here, fa, to, in order to live in the fields and on the lakes and in the marshes. And I think we need to change this into a suffix. And what are we going to do? We are going to use I'm going to move us over here. We are going to use our presumptive form, which we haven't made yet, but we just had a great suggestion for some morphology. So it's going to be aqua. Wow. I'm in love with these labialized velars. These are great. So let's put that in. Agua. So instead of to, this is the verb form that means let's, or something will probably happen, or there's an intention. And we are going to, I don't know if this is how it's used in classical Japanese, but this is how I'm going to use it. Again, there's nothing more dangerous than someone who just knows just enough to take something and just wildly misinterpret it. But that is me. That's the name of my game. And so what are we going to do? We are going to take this presumptive form, presumptive penultimate stress. Fine. And we are going to say, he flew down in order to live. So mane ahue naquela sapata. Good. Okay. Yeah, case marker stacking is a thing in Japanese, which is somewhat where I got this idea from. I am absolutely without shame in rifling through languages for grammatical inspiration, but hopefully I'm being at least honest about it. And I think the nice thing about that is you can then go and, if you've seen the way that I've implemented something, you think it's interesting, you at least know whereabouts to look to find out more about it and see if you want to replicate it yourself. Okay, so I think that's a good point in that sentence. How much more do we have to do? Not much more. Let's just finish. So con afetu palana sefia. But although he washed and washed all day long, he day and night follow wash. This seems more like that Eustamiya call grammar. We have this durative marker down here, which is done by reduplication. So let's say that we can use reduplication to form duratives here. So Sefia. So quando fetu Sefia. But though he washed all day long and almost drowned himself at it, so we're going to need this follow suffix at the end, and which means that we're going to need a continuative here. Hupa. And we get rid of the pa. Almost by this. Oh, we have an instrumental. Cool, I forgot. Huino lomu. And we have, let's just put that in. Always document. Oop. Always know your shortcuts. Yeah, okay. Back to the matter at hand. Huino lomu wanesiya umefalo. Let's just check to make sure everything makes sense. This is our concessive. It takes the E stem, which is penultimate. Great. I'll probably back off on a lot of this ablaut sort of thing and make it a feature of only a very few common verbs, so I don't have to keep looking and seeing what syllable the stress will have fallen on. But good. Socha nafia sehuama ya seka sekata. They remain black. And I think we cannot have this and just standing at the start of the sentence. So let's just give this that to be thus suffix. And then afihupa, which is a way of saying and thus. And so he already sofa ya ake makalata. So he learned that he was already good. This ake is the complementizer for adjectives that we made before. I haven't talked about that in this verbal system chat today, but yeah, we'll talk about it another time. We may change it, we may not. The important thing I think to know is that I would like the this complementizer to attach to the terminal form, because I believe this is what happens in Japanese, which I think that's or in modern Japanese. So if you have a form like, I know that so and so is eating an apple. Lucy, I asked you about this earlier. I don't know if I should have been bothering you when you were prepping for the stream. But yeah, it's my understanding, based on my shoddy investigation, is that it takes this final form if you were to put a sentence in that structure. So he learned that he was already good. It would take the what were we calling it? The terminal, the predicative form in that internal clause. So let's make that happen. Terminal has initial stress, no suffix, so ya. Okay. And with that, I think we've done some good work today. I'm going to scoot myself back here, because today is a bit of it's not the full 2-hour stream, but hopefully we at least got some good conlanging in, and not too much shy of 2 hours. Just we take what we can get, and I think what we can get is limited right now by my ability to sit still or stand still in one place for a long period of time. I was recovering from a back injury, and so yeah, I tell you, sitting down is an extreme sport. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining today. You don't need to hear my tale of woe. This has been a lot of fun. I've been thinking about this language a lot, and I am very, very strongly tempted to go down the route that who was it that mentioned it? Who was it that was it? I'm going to look up. I'm going to make sure I give the credit where credit is due. Violet, yes. Are vowels going to undergo mutation under stress? I think they should. I think we may need to make this system more extreme, but at the same time, how extreme do we really want to go? How extreme do you want me to go? Maybe I'll say that. How extreme do you want me to go? I'm going to stick around for another few minutes to get your opinions on that, because we can keep going back into the past, or we can start to go into the descendant languages. Really, it's whatever you want and whatever seems like fun. So if there are particular things, let me know. You don't have to let me know now. If you're watching this on YouTube, let me know in the comments. And yeah, let's just keep making languages together. This is a lot of fun.